Frankenstein was written by a woman, and then the movie spent decades going, great, let's make this mostly about dudes. So we're tracking that gap from Bride of Frankenstein to Lisa Frankenstein, right after the intro music. You're listening to Second Cut. This is the podcast where we talk about topics in film theory, criticism, history, etc., because it's fun. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one with the dead boyfriend in the tanning salon.
I'm Sam. I'm the one who wrote a dissertation on all this stuff about over 10 years ago now.
I'm Kieran. I'm the one who really wishes he had the suave charm of Peter Cushing, even if he is a maniacal, egotistical, just monstrous individual in this movie.
Yeah, when I saw him on screen, although I saw his name first, but when I saw him on screen, I did the RLM Rich Evans, Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah. No, anytime Peter Cushing walks on screen, the film is automatically better. It's just proper kind of classic British charm, you know? That's how it works.
Yeah,
also, he's way too good for this film.
And even when he's monstrous, he's just so charismatic while doing it.
You may fire when ready. And I will say, Jacob, your intro made it sound like you were playing Clue.
Oh, okay. Yep.
It was me with a dead boyfriend in the tanning salon.
Yes.
Win.
I guess tanning bed, really, but
yeah.
What's the difference? So The Bride came out, and Sam, I won't steal your plug later, but you saw it, so we're talking about female-focused Frankenstein films, although that's kind of a misnomer because only one of them really has a woman involved in the important parts of being Frankenstein.
That's one is like the iconic one. One is a female Frankenstein actually as kind of the Doctor, and one of them is the monster, which is Frankenstein. So it is a loose connection.
I mean, look at it, there's been a surprising amount of them over the years, really, but very few actually from a female perspective, which is kind of slightly concerning. But you know, you look back, you have things like Weird Science and Frankenhooker, which are kind of both interesting films in their way, but probably not the best example of kind of a feminist reading of the film, although there are arguments to be made for Frankenhooker, I'll give it that. But yeah, Weird Science was very much a typical kind of 80s teen comedy that hasn't aged particularly well, But yeah, Poor Things was definitely more of that, though it's not based on, it's based on a separate book that was kind of influenced by Frankenstein.
Okay, we have lost Sam.
Oh, I'm so glad it's not me for once. This is great.
Yes. Well, whatever he said at the end there, I'm sure it was very smart, and it's going to sound great in the edit.
I was going to say, I'm going to edit this together, and it's going to be amazing.
Yes. But, what I found so interesting is, the first two films, they're marketed. Bride of Frankenstein, Frankenstein Created Woman, and then they're mostly about dudes. Like at least the second film, now you could go, oh, hey, it's a conservative take on trans issues in the modern age. But the interesting thing about the book Frankenstein is it's a woman, telling a story about male creation without woman, and then the movies are just kind of like, oh yeah, this is just the story, and obviously the guy doctor is going to get with another guy doctor, and they're going to make women out of whatever, and now they're part of the story.
And obviously, remember, it's not just a female created it. It was literally a teenage girl that did it, essentially to annoy Lord Byron, who was trying to get handsy, essentially, with his best mate's wife at the time. Mary Shelley is just ridiculous as a figure anyway. Lost her virginity on her mother's grave, which is just the most goth thing I've ever heard in my life. Goes on a holiday, gets reined in, and somebody goes, "You want to do ghost story competitions?" She's like, "I'll join." And they're like, "A teenage girl can't write a ghost story." It's like, right, let me just invent science fiction and gothic horror all in one go, shall I? So it's just like, I mean, Mary Shelley. If you also haven't read The Last Man, one of my other personal favorites. It literally, the first third is like a Jane Austen novel. The second third, a plague starts coming from the east. I mean, who would ever have imagined that, in this day and age, and starts wiping everyone out essentially, and the entire world essentially burns and dies. The amazing thing is, right at the end, the last character left literally goes, the entire world is dead. He's in Rome at this point, because the Shelleys like to go on holidays places. And he goes, I'm essentially going to write this confession. If anyone in the future ever manages to find this, they'll know this. I'm going to sail out into the Mediterranean and let the storms take me. And he signs it New Year's Day 2100. We haven't even reached that point yet, and she set her apocalypse novel 300 years in the future. It's insanity. She was an absolute genius and just mental. But yeah,
also Shelley. Metal. But yeah. Both of those things.
Oh yeah, so metal. And so she created gothic horror. She created pretty much apocalyptic, post-apocalypse literature at the same time, which is not relevant in today's world at all. And she's doing all this literally in her teenage years, in her 20s and 30s. It's just completely insane.
Yeah, and the Sam talked about some of the movie versions, but obviously we covered the Kenneth Branagh, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein on the show. We talked about, what was the other one? Frankenstein versus the Wolfman?
Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, yes, for the first, or kind of either the first or sort of the first mainstream, the one that made a popular idea of werewolf changing by moonlight. Those are a good sort of 4 odd years ago. They're on wherever you get your podcasts from. Go back and check those. I'll find out exactly. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is episode 35. We did that in April 2022, so that's nearly 4 years ago.
So long ago.
Frankenstein meets the Wolfman is not that long after it. It'll be, here it is, October 2022. Yeah, so 3.5 years ago. So we have touched on Frankenstein in places, but...
Well, what's interesting, I think, about the first 2 films we're going to talk about is, kind of the quote that gets bandied about is, knowledge is knowing that Frankenstein created the monster, and wisdom is knowing Frankenstein is the monster. Whatever it is, that idea is just sort of completely brushed off with the first 2 films, where they're just like, yeah, actually Frankenstein is just a really cool guy that we're gonna have come back for a sequel, and be a generic sort of aristocrat that speaks loftily and is a good scientist.
I mean, I am one of the rare people. People always kind of praise Bride of Frankenstein. When we get onto it, Bride of Frankenstein is a very good film, but I am so in the original 1931 Frankenstein camp. I've seen that movie so many times. It's one of my favorites. Admittedly, I'm still more of a Dracula fan than a Frankenstein fan. This is just my camp. Even despite with the Universal Dracula having random pieces of cardboard over shades, just like randomly there. Like, what is it doing there? We don't know. Just in shot is amazing. But still, both of them are very, very good, but I am definitely an original Frankenstein fan. And obviously this is the first talkie version, because I'm fairly sure there are a couple of, Edison might have got to one at some point, and I'm fairly sure there was another one around. A bit like Jekyll and Hyde, where, before we actually get to the ones we know, there's 3 others back in the day, sort of thing.
Well, I've only seen the first Frankenstein in the context of I watched it for a horror class.
So did I, actually.
What is the female presence like in that movie?
The female presence in the original 1931 Dracula. Frankenstein even. Not great. Neither of them not great. It's very much I'm so worried about Henry, and then we'll get Edward Van Sloan to go up to the castle kind of thing, and he's going, we'll see who's crazy now, it's alive and all this stuff. Little girl gets drowned, obviously. But it is sort of, and obviously the monster kind of goes into the marital chamber later, which is kind of a plot point with a few character traits thrown on rather than a character.
Sam, you reviewed Del Toro's Frankenstein for us. What is the female presence like in that film compared to these?
Well, it's certainly better than what it was in the Universal films. I mean, he doesn't quite go full on actually creating, a bride kind of character in this version, because he's going back to Shelley, and in the original book, it's only kind of suggested as an idea, as a demand by the creature to make him a mate, which Frankenstein goes back on his word and doesn't end up doing that. Destroys his work before it goes too far, and that's what Del Toro kind of sticks to. But he definitely makes Elizabeth, kind of the traditional the love interest, more of an active character and with more to do, and she's the first person to sympathise with the creature and see his kind of his humanity, and have that emotional connection, in comparison to like the abusive dad he's got in Baron Frankenstein. So yeah, I think it's definitely kind of on the right path, towards better representation, but I'm not sure how far down that route you can go, without actually having the monster character be female, or having the creator female as well. That kind of opens up some other avenues, which be interesting to explore in some of these films, I think.
Yeah, there definitely are shades of something like Shape of Water in this. It's like, Del Toro's doing a thing where a female character sympathises with the monsters. I've never seen this before, ever, in any of his work, ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, I mean, I loved his version of Frankenstein, but it was exactly what I expected a Del Toro version of Frankenstein to be. I could have just had a checklist and just said, yep, and just all these.
Is the colour palette predominantly kind of like amber and sort of that Del Toro green? Yes.
And insect imagery and steampunk technology and Catholic symbolism, kind of warped and kind of monstrous shapes, all that stuff. It's all in there. Yeah.
I mean, we're not saying it's bad, but it is like, if somebody goes, Del Toro's done a Frankenstein movie, you can kind of just sit there and see it in your head.
Well, it's like if Wes Anderson made one, we can picture it right now.
Yeah.
We could close our eyes and it's claymation. Sam, before your internet takes a dump again, talk to us about The Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, so The Bride of Frankenstein, 1935, James Whale. It was Universal's first horror sequel. So their monster series that would obviously keep going for just over 20 years in the end. The original Frankenstein, coming hot on the heels of Dracula in 1931, was a massive hit for the studio, but James Whale kind of resisted calls to do a direct sequel for a long time. He did, in the meantime, he did The Invisible Man and The Old Dark House for Universal, but he really didn't want to kind of retread old ground, basically, and he was really reticent to return to that universe. But I think they kind of, the higher ups at the studio execs basically, I think, implied that, well, we're going to do a sequel, so either you want to be involved and we'll give you creative free reign, or we'll get someone else to do it. And I think he was kind of tempted back on the back of that, basically.
That feels very much Sam, like Matrix Resurrections. It's like, we're going to make a sequel anyway. Do you want to do it? And one of them exactly. Like, okay, in which case I'll take the hit.
Yeah.
Sam, what's the James Whale movie, so we can plug that here?
What do you mean, the James Whale Frankenstein movie, or which James Whale movie are you talking about?
Oh, the biographical film about him from the 90s.
I'm sorry, that was Gods and Monsters with Ian McKellen and Brendan Fraser, which is an interesting one. I mean, it definitely exaggerates certain aspects of his life and career, but it's almost like a what if kind of story, really. It's kind of digging into basically what if you had this kind of passionate relationship, kind of in the background of his kind of artistic endeavours, but I think it plays in certain kind of disproven things about it. Basically, always claims, it was his idea to make the monster look like that, and basically he came up with all the visual ideas, and it was all his baby. But I think he had some quite, he was a very distinct director, but I think he had some very important creative collaborators with him as well. Not the least Jack Pierce, did all the makeup for the monsters. So it's an interesting
as well, especially for the original.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one from as a Ian McKellen performance, and a good starting point in terms of kind of getting you into the headspace of like Hollywood and how it works at that time. But yeah, it does very much exaggerate kind of the truth in that film. But yeah.
We should note Oscar-nominated performance by Ian McKellen, and for Redgrave, and it won for adapted screenplay.
Good.
So Oscar-winning film.
Yeah.
Nice. Sorry, back to. I didn't mean to go off on that tangent. Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes, Bride of Frankenstein. Yep. So James Whale attempted back to do his a direct follow-on, despite the fact that the monster was very clearly destroyed, dead again. However you want to look at it, by the end of the first film, you're having a flaming windmill collapse on him. And they get around this with a quite clever little framing device, which has Mary Shelley on that dark and stormy night during their ghost story writing competition, almost speaking directly to camera and saying, that wasn't the real end of my story. This is how it should have ended. So it kind of gives them license, to do what they like, and this kind of endorsement from a fictionalisation of the book's original author. And she's played by Elsa Lanchester, who plays the bride in the final few minutes of the film as well.
We'll say that already this discussion of Bride of Frankenstein has probably gone on longer than the Bride of Frankenstein is actually on screen in this movie. It's slightly insane.
Yeah. I mean,
That's the title of the film.
Yeah. The film itself. I mean, they didn't tend to be long back then. These are kind of essentially B movies, So the film itself is 75 minutes, I think, and The Bride is on screen film less than 5 minutes of that. So, you can understand why Maggie Gyllenhaal wanted to redress that balance and have a whole film following a female monster in her film. So that's a point in its favour, I suppose.
So enthused with that movie. That's a point in his favour. Without giving too much away of your review, but
yeah. I mean, I've reviewed it. I saw it several weeks ago. I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it.
We again, Peter Bradshaw's termed whelmed.
Yeah, exactly.
It exists. Congratulations.
Yeah. So basically, it turns out in this version that the Baron Frankenstein, he survived his brush with death, and he goes off to recuperate and marry Elizabeth. Meanwhile, the monster has survived the collapse and burning windmill. Kind of, he's in like a mine shaft or something, and then kind of drags himself out. With noticeably singed hair this time, and then goes for a wander again and meets various horrified people, as is his wont. But then, most famously, meets one old man, blind old hermit living in the woods, who is the first human to actually take pity on him, to show some kindness. And I love that this is such a prominent scene, because it's probably the only kind of iconic scene from the book that they hadn't put in the the first Universal film. And that's kind
aside from like everything else about the framing device, like the whole glacier stuff and that kind of section, which Del Toro does put back in, admittedly.
Yeah. I mean, the first one, it's sort of like a whistle-stop tour of like the greatest hits, and then another sense it kind of does it does its own thing. But yeah, this kind of picks out the remainder of the unadapted kind of famous scenes from the book, So the monster's doing his own thing, and then Dr. Frankenstein, he's not stupid enough just to go off his own back and try and do the same experiments again, gets taken under the wing of a very flamboyantly camp Dr. Pretorius, who's essentially more like he's sort of like a cross between kind of the more evil Baron Frankenstein from the book, and maybe a bit of how the monster was in the book as well. That he's very intelligent but quite malicious, and kind of got no qualms about putting a lot of people through suffering just to get what he wants, essentially.
He knows because it's Henry Frankenstein in this one.
Yes.
in these two.
Yeah, because they didn't want to have their lead characters with Germanic names when there's still like kind of some suspicion of certain European nations.
I never quite, because this is sort of maybe the third time I've seen this. I've seen it a couple of times, like once many years ago and then a couple of years ago again. And I'd completely forgotten Pretorius was in this and these little people in jars. Is he like Frankenstein's like former like lecturer or something like that? Because they know each other, right?
I think there's. I think that they keep it fairly vague, but as you say, that it's not the first time they've met. Kind of, there's a vague recognition there, isn't there? But
because I was wondering if it's a bit like in Nosferatu where you've got the Van Helsing, which isn't Van Helsing, he's slightly mad, kind of doing his own destructive thing.
Yeah,
there's almost a little bit of that kind of slight madness. What the hell? Kind of thing in there for it as well as sort of very mad Van Helsing, but he's not tracking down the vampire. He almost wants to like create the vampire.
I also think incorporating scenes from the book is why this movie feels so weird. Like kind of I don't know, choppy and like episodic and not really coherent, other than the Frankenstein Pretorius kind of plot.
Yeah, and it was edited down, and then they filmed some more scenes, and they edited it again, and it's the reason it feels like that. I think
it is a Frankenstein's monster of a film.
Yeah. But I kind of, for me, that's almost part of the charm, really. I mean, this is James Whale at his most James Whale, basically. It's like the first film he did basically a crowd pleasing, kind of very stylish looking kind of gothic horror film, and then this time, right, he said, I'm going to come back, but I'm going to do it my way. So I'm going to do everything but bigger. Everything looks better. The sets are bigger. And I'm going to fill it with my kind of slightly camp, kind of over the top sense of humour, and some really just weird, surreal ideas. And like the homunculi, the little people that Pretorius has in jars,
which Jacob is not in the book.
And then you have Una O'Connor, who he also has in the Invisible Man, the shrieking middle-aged lady, just comes in and just steals the show. He comes out with stuff like, when she sees the monster, she goes, I'd hate to find him under my bed at night. He's a nightmare in the daylight. Because I think they knew each other, as with Colin Clive as well, who plays Henry Frankenstein. So I think they all knew each other from the London stage, basically, and they all came over to Hollywood about the same time and just kind of stuck together. This troupe of kind of trusted kind of performers they like to use. I mean, for me, I think the highlight scene in the whole film is the. There's two actually. I do very much like Pretorius kind of going into the Undercroft and then meeting the monster for the first time, and when everyone else is kind of run away screaming, if like that, he's kind of just regarding him with just amusement. Basically, it's just like, oh, you're an interesting fellow, aren't you? And straight away he sees that opportunity. It's like, oh, yeah, so. I've got to find a way to convince Frankenstein to try his experiment again for my purposes, because essentially he's at least off theorized he's sort of like he's almost like a Lucifer kind of character. He's like the devil on kind of Frankenstein's shoulder basically. And David J. Scarl talks about how he's the what do you say? He's a gay Mephistopheles, an over-the-top caricature of a bitchy and aging homosexual, which I think very much kind of fed into kind of ideas at the time, because obviously there were actors like Ernest Thesiger and James Whale, funny enough, people in Hollywood who were very publicly out, but basically in the right circles, it's like they're accepted like Hollywood or the theatre community. But otherwise, in mainstream society, obviously they've got suspicion and seen as deviant figures, And I think that's very much. I think James Whale probably leaning into that and kind of saying, right, if this is what you think of me and my kind of my community, then I'm going to really go for it. I'm going to really exaggerate everything and turn it into like a figure of fun and like add to the entertainment value of my version of this film. So that's kind of what I mean by like that. Go on.
Now, I'm going to ask the question on this because I have always been kind of counter to a lot of the academics who kind of say that sort of, at least, especially the first film, I don't see it. This one a little bit more, and the whole thing of that kind of the homoerotic coding between the monster and Frankenstein as the Doctor. And my thing is, realistically, if you'd had a straight director, I don't think you'd be reaching half as much.
Yeah.
And I think it's... And I think there's an element of me that thinks there's a lot of projection going into it based on the sexuality of the director.
Agreed. Yeah. I would say it's possibly can be there if you're looking for it, but it probably wasn't intended that way. Whereas I do think the portrayal of Pretorius is intentional. I think that's James Whale kind of putting an in joke in there. But the rest of it I think is probably pushing it a little bit. I agree with that,
because it's like every single analysis pretty much you find of the original 31 Frankenstein, or a good sort of 60-70% of anything to do with horror, will say that there is intentionally homoerotic kind of conflict between the monster and Henry Frankenstein. And I go, if it had been Todd Browning directing it, you would not have thought that in the slightest. And it could have been Todd Browning doing it because he did Dracula, so...
Now, interestingly, when you come to Dracula's daughter, I would say the homo, kind of the lesbian kind of subtext in that is intentional. I think there's more to that, but that's not to do with like who wrote it and who directed it. It's kind of interesting. It's almost like at this time you could put kind of a lesbian subtext in a film. But you wouldn't do it like an intentional gay subtext. That makes sense. I mean, I don't know whether I'm kind of pushing a bit there, but I think it's possibly a sign of the kind of creative endeavours at the time, and how things would go.
Well, again, I think I've said this before. The Phantasmagoria conference I went to about 2 years ago now, there was somebody doing a talk on Rebecca, and there's another film from around that time that I can't remember, and I will find it at some point. It's like The Uninvited or something like that I had seen before, and they said kind of I'll find it at some point because I've got the thing up now. So the Hays Code was awful, but at least it meant that they couldn't just give women as kind of sex objects. They had to do something interesting with them. So it's like you kind of could code them in kind of a queer way, because as long as you abided by the Hays Code, you had to do something with them, so you might as well explore these areas.
And we've mentioned it previously with film noir, haven't we? It's like often the themes there and what actually happens within the plot is really dark and twisted. But as long as it's not actually depicted on explicitly on screen, you get away with it. It's kind of these kind of stylistic kind of way, kind of really heightened stylistic ways of depicting things kind of adds to kind of the kind of artistic kind of appeal of these.
Just found the thing very quick. Spectral Lesbianism in McArdle's The Uninvited and Du Maurier's Rebecca by Liz McManus, who she was a PhD student at the time. So interesting point. I've always kept that in my head and thought maybe we should do something on the Hays Code at some point, just an entire episode on that, like before, during, and after, maybe. Welcome to production meetings live on air.
So the other kind of famous scene is as previously mentioned, it's the monster meeting the blind old man in the woods, which unfortunately is a really touching, lovely scene in this. But pretty much everyone who watches it now will probably think of the recreation in the Mel Brooks parody. Unfortunately,
Well, I guess I have read the book before because I thought I'd seen that scene in the original movie, but I guess I didn't.
Most people think of young Frankenstein. They think of Gene Hackman playing a really deadly version of this blind old man who's setting him on fire and pouring hot soup on his crotch and everything else. But I think it is a sign that like people just hold this sequence in like such affection that like a spoof like that that's so well done. It's almost does it as well as its original. Original take on it. Obviously we haven't really talked about the bride herself because
I was thinking that. It's like we've got all this way. We haven't actually mentioned the female aspect.
Yeah.
Because that's the most striking thing when you watch this movie is I was sitting there the whole time going, okay, they're talking about it.
Yeah.
Where is the Bride of Frankenstein?
Yeah, and there's meant to be a bit of a debate among fans all these years. It's like, who does the Bride of Frankenstein refer to? Is it the Elsa Lanchester monster, or is it Elizabeth? And I think, well, it's not Elizabeth, is it? She's hardly in this.
But Frankenstein is
or
the
is
doctor.
it the monster?
Yeah.
Is it Pretorius? Yeah. They're all the brides. It's like it's like the brides of Dracula. It's the brides of Frankenstein. Yeah. I'm fairly sure there will be an article out there where it's Bride of Frankenstein. They put the S in a bracket.
Yeah.
When people ask with a gay couple, which one's the bride? Well, we know it's Pretorius. he is the main character of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, but basically, the second half of this is all
him and the monster.
Yeah, the monster comes back and, like he does in the book, asks for a mate to be created. I mean, Boris Karloff was famously against letting the monster speak. I mean, he's got about 20, 10 lines in this, if that. Very short statements, but he's not the most chatty person, but he can actually speak in this version. Because he thought that was the real magic of the original, that he was this sympathetic innocence, just who couldn't communicate very well, and was clumsy and made bad decisions, and basically driven to horrible accidents by the human world, essentially. But he was overruled, and consequently, because he had to speak in this, famously in the original, he had a bridge work, like dentures, basically, in his mouth that he took out, so to hollow out his cheeks, they could kind of shade and make him look kind of dead and gaunt. That's why in this version he looks kind of fuller of face, because he's got his dentures back and his bridge replacement back in, so he can actually speak. So Jack Pierce couldn't make him look quite as corpse-like in this, but the lines he does have, though, obviously, the few words the old man teaches him, and then him actually demanding a mate be created. And you get to the finale, you get to basically a recreation of the creation scene of the first film, but except
it feels like they're trying to make that a thing again.
Yeah, and this time, of course, Frankenstein says she's alive. See what they did there?
I was going to say, everyone has a go now of like all these films kind of just harking back on the original. It's like they're always doing it. This is not a new thing.
Yeah. Whatever makes us money.
Exactly.
I was going to say, we'll milk it,
Yeah, I mean, one of the first sequels pretty much did all the things that every sequel does now. Which it's kind of interesting to see. So that they do create the bride and bring it to life with electricity again, and then unwrap the bandages, and she's got this fright wig of a hairstyle, and she's got no dialogue. She just as Kieran was alluding to, she moves like a bird and hisses like a swan. That's a conscious decision by Elsa Lanchester. I was watching the swans in Regent's Park in London, and I thought, I can use that. So she was literally doing a swan impression.
Unlike Christopher Lee in one of the Dracula movies, who apparently did it because the dialogue was so awful he refused to speak.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Boris Karloff famously had a really uncomfortable time of it. 5 hours in makeup, and having to wear these big lifts, and this kind of basically he was quite in pain, a lot of pain for the rest of his life. He already had early onset arthritis, and then from the first film, after having to carry Colin Clive around for so many takes, he did his back in, and then in this one I think he ended up falling over off his high shoes and injured his hip again, and basically just adds a litany of injuries. Elsa Lanchester in this, I think she had a 3-hour makeup job for each time they needed her on set, and she had to wear I think it's something like 5-6 inch kind of, essentially they're like stilts and shoes, really, just to bring her up to kind of eye height with like her male kind of co-stars, basically. And I think she had a borderline panic attack at one point where she was lying kind of on the gurney for hours on end, wrapped up head to toe, and feeding her through a straw, So it doesn't sound like she had the best of times there.
I'd have taken a nap.
Yeah. And essentially, monster kind of, I suppose, kind of is driven to kill them all through kind of guilt and kind of realizing that basically they're abominations, and then they shouldn't be around at all. And it's probably the only line he should have ever had. I think he could have quite happily cut all the rest of the dialogue from the film, but his final line is before he takes the bride and Pretorius, notably to their dooms by blowing up the lab. He says, "We belong dead," which is a great final line, I think.
Let's be honest. If there was I'm surprised like Del Toro didn't use that as like his tagline.
Yeah,
Frankenstein, we belong dead.
Yeah,
guys. Here's my problem with this though. Is I was so bored. It is such a boring movie compared to the first one. Mainly because I am waiting around, going, okay, like you've been talking about making a woman this whole movie, but they're just sitting around and talking about it. Was this made during like 1930s COVID? Like,
I will say, excuse me, Frankenstein Created Woman is the next film that we're on to.
yeah, sorry, Pretorius Created Woman.
Yeah,
I mean, the one thing this one doesn't have, it doesn't have a random musical number in the middle.
That's true.
Which is unusual for Universal.
Yeah. I mean, generally they managed to get one in there wherever they could. Usually it's pad the runtime. Yeah. I mean, I believe that when it was first kind of got to discover, this was about an hour and a half, and then they cut it down because Seds didn't like some of the scenes, and then they added the gypsy camp scene, and then they cut out some other stuff and added some more stuff. It was, as I said, it's a bit of a hodgepodge. I mean, it was such a kind of they had to go over stuff and couldn't afford to shoot other stuff to such an extent that in the final scene, when the castle is when the lab is blowing up, you actually see Frankenstein basically in kind of the lab self-destructing. He's like against the back wall, kind of basically cowering. And basically, he was originally going to die, so they had him there set up for that, and he would have died in the lab explosion with everyone else. But then you see him outside, and basically they decided at the last minute, we can't have a hero die such a horrible death. We'll let him miraculously escape again. So he's
not the hero; he's the villain.
So they brought him out again, let him have a miraculous escape, but they couldn't reshoot the lab exploding because it was too expensive. So they hoped not enough people would notice him cowering in the back of the lab as it exploded. But
I didn't notice because I was bored.
You need to
even by that point.
You need to do the Roger Corman theory, which is that one burning, exploding building looks like another one. So you just get the other footage, change it slightly, and there you go.
Isn't there, when we watched Wolfman of Frankenstein, I have a feeling that there's a reused shot in that of a castle burning?
I would imagine
something.
so, yeah.
You have the kind of watermill because the dam bursts at the end to destroy. That's how the miniature goes at the end of that one. There may be a castle burning at some point. I can't remember.
The only part of this film that captured my attention was the scene with the blind, priest or whatever he is. And it's just because that sequence is like interesting, where he's treating the monster as a person. He's teaching him how to eat bread, which is weird.
Bread,
like, why would you be teaching?
Good.
Maybe he thinks he's like a mentally disabled person. I don't know, but I don't know. It's then they show up at the priest's house and they're like, "Yeah, that's the monster." Oh, okay. Sure.
I think the trouble is obviously, you're kind of mining the book for like the two scenes we haven't done yet, and then we have to fill the rest in somehow. It feels
most of it is sitting around talking. Like that. Sorry, that is boring.
It feels like in a similar way to what they had with The Hobbit as opposed to Lord of the Rings. Everyone's like, why is The Hobbit so awful? It's like, because Lord of the Rings is 1,500 pages you can make into 3 movies. The Hobbit is 350 pages that they want to make 2 and decided we're going to make it 3 movies. So you've got to put extra stuff in that doesn't quite connect,
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I take the point. It is very fractured feeling, and you can tell it's been kind of torn apart, stitched back together, and it's not the best flow in the world. I would agree. Definitely, the first film is very much more a complete work, and I think it's rightly regarded as this kind of this towering icon. But equally, I find this one fascinating. I still think it's my favourite Frankenstein film. I completely get why it's been kind of embraced by by the queer community and why there's that reading there. And I think it works the best if you just say, yeah, this is just James Whale just living his best life and cramming this kind of, take it as a gothic horror camp comedy and just go with it, you know.
I think it would probably work better if you literally watch one after the other back to back and you stick them together and get rid of the credits and do
that might help.
End of the first half and you have your kind of little bit of breather before you ramp up to the ending.
I actually did that a couple of years ago. I think it was, what was it? For whatever reason, I was going to see like a Halloween night screening of these two kind of back to back, and just for myself, they cancelled the screening. I can't remember, there might be like a power cut at the cinema or something, so I didn't get to see it. But I ended up doing the same thing at home. Basically, all right, I've got these on Blu-ray. I'll just watch them back to back, and it does work.
You get an ice cream between the two for your intermission.
Yeah, and I think if you put them back to back, they're probably the length of a standard film, basically.
Standard Frankenstein adaptation. Yeah.
They're like 70 something minutes, 75 minutes. They're like they're
2.5 hours.
But I think side by side, you can also probably see the tone James Whale's going for throughout, kind of a bit clearer. I think it's less obvious. I think it's more horror leading in the first one, more kind of explicit, like German expressionist and atmospheric and visually striking, and then the second one it's like that, but kind of dials up with a bigger budget and kind of giving him kind of creative freedom to throw in all the weird ideas and the kind of vaguely veiled kind of homoerotic kind of jokes and
Christian symbolism of the monster being literally crucified at one point.
And while he plays around, has fun with all his theatre mates, essentially. I mean, I do think the homunculus scene is really interesting because again, it comes out of nowhere. It doesn't really add to anything, but I'm pleased it's there because it's not something I expect to see for a film of this era. It still looks fairly sophisticated. It's quite striking, and that's. That was conceived by the same guy who did the Claude Rains' Invisible Man effects as well. Who was John P. Fulton, and it's a similar kind of technique to that. Basically, it's all done like full size kind of glass bell jars, over the actors, and against like a black matte background, basically. And then if it's black and matte, you can kind of basically take that frame, snip that frame out, and then overlay it on top of another kind of film frame, basically. And there's a bit of trickery there, just like Claude Rains, kind of Rains, like with the black, you can easily kind of paint that out, and then kind of put it in, and
you almost kind of like frame by frame, like matte paint it.
Essentially, yeah, exactly.
I think the homunculi scene is weird because it's one of these things where when it came up, I vaguely remembered it. I'm like, oh yeah, I vaguely remember this. Let's have a laugh for 3 minutes and then let's move on again. It's a weird kind of little break in the middle that is like, this is a really fun scene that has no business in this movie, but it's not an awful scene either because it's so random. Like, if this was in an Alice in Wonderland adaptation, you go, yeah, that's completely fine. This is normal. Frankenstein, you go, what?
I mean, there's a really weird Universal film from about this time with Lionel Barrymore. It's called the Devil Doll. Basically, he's kind of, it's like a mad scientist can kind of put human brains in like doll figures essentially, but how they actually filmed it, basically just obviously actors in like doll-like costumes, but they're basically made to look small, like the borrowers or something. And again, it's a similar kind of thing, like filmed against like large props, and then kind of with a bit of trickery, kind of put against like normal sized people in like the same scene and stuff like that. It's a really strange film, and then it's got like Lionel Barrymore playing essentially a criminal on the run, but he kind of does a Mrs. Doubtfire and kind of dresses as an old woman to hide from the police.
I'm looking it up now. You know why it's a weird film? Do you know who directed it?
Oh, that would have been... Is that Todd Browning again?
Yeah, it was Todd Browning. Yeah.
Dracula
does freaks, does this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you want camp humour in your horror film, you get James Whale. If you want some really weird kind of twisted kind of just off the wall stuff. You get Todd Browning.
Between the two of them, you're good.
Yeah.
We just need to say that obviously one of the reasons you go for Bride of Frankenstein is to actually see the Bride of Frankenstein, and although she's not on screen for very long, the hairstyle is iconic.
Yeah,
like
it's an iconic look, and obviously it's a very kind of captivating physical performance. Because she doesn't say she just hisses, she doesn't say anything, but just says so much just with her body language. It's I really rate it. I mean, also Manchester. I mean, really interesting kind of character actually. She plays the nanny that gets fired in the opening scene of Mary Poppins, if you remember. He's basically just driven out the house by the horrible children.
Sure.
And she was she was married to Charles Lawton for appearance's sake only, because famously he was gay and she was probably at least bisexual, and they were good friends, and they said, well, let's marry so the press doesn't bother us, basically. So.
Yeah. There's so many weird things. Like, she got nominated for 2 Oscars. And a Golden Globe and all this kind of thing. She's in Mary Poppins. She got nominated for Witness for the Prosecution and for Come to the Stable in 1949. So very well-respected actress throughout her life.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, and to have her playing Mary Shelley as well, obviously I think it's a neat little kind of... obviously they need the frame device, to kind of catch people up, and reintroduce to this world. But I do like the kind of the thing about getting the person playing the author to play a character within the story as well. Obviously that's a technique that's been used, narrative device that's been used many times over the years.
I was going to say somebody's done that in something I've seen recently, and I can't remember what it is. They don't do it in the Del Toro Frankenstein, do they?
No, they don't.
No, it's not.
I mean, they do it in The Bride, but obviously you haven't seen it yet. So,
okay. Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I've read your review. I was going to say, they didn't do it in something like Poor Things, did they? No. Poor Things is definitely its own thing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a hodgepodge, and I mean, Jacob said he was incredibly bored through it. I wasn't necessarily bored, but at the same time, I'm just I forgot she wasn't in this for like the last 10-15 minutes, and it's literally only 5.
I'm always insane by this, but this is very much my jam. Kind of an over the top, kind of slightly kind of comic kind of take on this kind of material.
Yeah. We should obviously say, because I was sat there going, Colin Clive, where have we done Colin Clive recently?
It's Journey's End.
War Films episode.
Yes, yeah.
I
mean, sadly, his alcoholism, which we've mentioned before, I think in Journey's End, hadn't got any better. He was literally drinking himself to death at this point. I think I mentioned before, he had time to be held up, to get his reverse shots, because he just couldn't stand me. He'd also injured his leg again at this point, so I think he had a cast on, so that's why he's sitting down in so many of these scenes.
I was going to say, he's sitting down quite a lot of the scenes. Maybe that's why so many of the scenes are talking, Jacob, it's because he has to be sat down and all this stuff.
Yeah, but Colin Clive, sadly did pass away shortly after completing this film, so I think it was the next year. So, he would have... I don't know how his career would have gone. Obviously, it probably would have depends on whether he could have, got his drinking under control. Whether that, if he had someone like James Whale, still giving him work, he probably would have carried on. But I think may have mentioned previously. I think the thing about his Frankenstein, obviously we'll compare it to Peter Cushing shortly, but. He does have that kind of slight edge of kind of menace to him. He's not like a calculating evil super genius like like Peter Cushing's version. It's like in a sense he's a good man, but he only needs to be pushed slightly to go over the brink. He has got that edge of slight madness and
spurn genius almost.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think they do soften him slightly in this because they've got Pretorius to take on the kind of unequivocally evil mad scientist role.
I always think
maybe that's part of why I think this movie is boring. Is because Hank Frankenstein is just partially that may be because he's so drunk and in such a bad way.
That would be Henry Frankenstein.
Yes.
I'm sure his friends call him Hank.
Frankenstein. Silly name. Isn't he European? Why would he be named Dead? I don't know. It's dumb.
Well, again, originally it's Victor, but in the first film, like his best mate is called Victor, and in the novel, his best mate is called Henry. So they've just swapped the names.
They've swapped Victor Frankenstein with Henry Clavell, didn't they? Yeah.
But he is not at all like a mad scientist in this movie to me, and maybe that contributes to my distaste.
It is the story of the monster out in the world rather than the story of what we think of in terms of Frankenstein, of the labs and the creation.
The monster is the main character in this one, isn't he? You know, and they knew what they had with Karloff this time. It wasn't this unknown quantity; it was a massive star by this point. It's thought, right, we're going to get our money's worth out of Karloff.
Yeah.
I did see one thing. I think he was one of the highest paid kind of actors on the Universal roster at this point. Contrast to great resentment of Bela Lugosi, who was getting increasingly smaller kind of bit parts, and I think Ernest Thesiger plays Pretorius in this. He was paid the same as Bela Lugosi was for his previous film for Universal. So it's the rivalry was infamous and kind of understandable to an extent, because Karloff got so many more opportunities, I think. But this rightly kind of iconic, and I think it established a lot of kind of things that would kind of become kind of dominant in kind of horror sequels going forward. I mean, down to using bride, as a suffix, for your sequel, you have Bride of Chucky and Bride of Reanimator, and I'm sure lots of Z tier kind of cheap as chips kind of horror sequels as well. But I do think this is definitely. I've got a lot of affection for it. I love it. But I get kind of looking back at it with a modern eye and kind of modern sensibilities, and just comparing it to other Universal horror films, which seem more kind of better thought through, and feel like a kind of a whole piece. You could probably criticise it, but it's my jam. I like it, and it would set out kind of stall for kind of what one kind of horror sequel is. Just the same thing again, but make the monster woman this time, and they'd come back to that time again over the years in the other films we're about to talk about.
Yeah, we have good news. The Brits got a hold of Frankenstein and decided we're going to make it way cooler.
I mean, realistically, the Brits never let it go, because James Whale's from Dudley, just outside Birmingham, from Black Country. So it never left. And I mean, like, have you seen all the actors, like Colin Clive? They're all British.
From Hollywood to Hammer, we have quite a change in the tone and sensibility and all of that.
Yeah, I just want to quote, I found an article on kind of the monstrous feminine in Frankenstein films, and I just want to quote from this article very quickly. It's called Visualizing the Monsters in Frankenstein's Films by Caroline Joan S. Picard from Pacific Coast Philology, Volume 39, probably the year 2000. And essentially goes, the Universal series, in particular Wales film, bear the stamp of German expressionism with their atmospheric and symbolic settings. And later on goes, in contrast, the Hammer versions, particularly Fisher's films, on one level are more concerned with realistic depiction than with symbolic gesturing. These definitely go for the more visceral, and that was kind of Hammer's entire thing of, just like straight up with the, whatever would get the punters in, we will go for it, because they were a B-movie factory, essentially. That was their job.
I want to get out of the way that I harped on the other one for being boring, and I don't think that of all 1930s films. This movie rocks. This movie is awesome.
Hammer did their job well,
Yeah. For Frankenstein Created Woman, they were like, let's make it not boring with a chick. And yes, good job, 1960s men.
Yeah. Sam, which Frankenstein was this? Because this was 64, so they'd done 3 by this point? 2 by this point?
Yeah, they'd done Curse of Frankenstein, Revenge of Frankenstein, and...
Son of Frankenstein?
No, that's Universal.
I actually had this up a second ago.
Yeah.
Let me
I
tell you, it's the
think
curse,
you're right.
the revenge,
Yeah.
the evil.
Evil, yeah.
All 3 of those were out.
Yeah.
Because there's... which is the one where the guy who's then Jekyll in Jekyll and Sister Hyde is Frankenstein?
That's Horror of Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein.
That's the one. That's the one they did in the early 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I did not know Peter Cushing was on board from the beginning. So, guys, my thought watching this movie was: is George Lucas the Quentin Tarantino of the 1960s, 70s?
Well, here's the thing, right? You know, obviously, Peter Cushing, who was Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars. Do you know who was originally approached, Jacob, to play Grand Moff Tarkin?
Oh, gosh. Some other Hammer guy?
Christopher Lee, yeah. And Christopher Lee turned it down, which is why he came in for Count Dooku, because he's like, I've got to make up for this, you know.
I got to make a paycheck.
I mean, he very much wanted to class up the joint with some kind of British talents, you know, just mining Hammer and Ealing, you know, with Cushing and Alec Guinness.
Yeah, and it's like for
didn't he try to get Toshiro Mifune too?
Yeah. That was another possibility for Obi-Wan. Yeah.
But it's like Halloween. Donald Pleasance's role of Loomis was originally offered to Christopher Lee, and he turned it down, and then offered to Peter Cushing, and he turned it down. So they went to the next one, which is Donald Pleasance. He accepted it because Donald Pleasance would have accepted anything if you pay him. If you pay him something, he will act in it. Despite the fact he literally was kind of, you know, the ultimate Bond villain. He'll be the cheapest chips thing you can imagine. Anyway, Frankenstein Created Woman. It's the 4th Frankenstein film from Hammer, who are essentially known for churning about 10 movies a year, all of them cheap. Half the time filming 2 movies on the same sets back to back, then doing the same thing again, and releasing one from each in a double bill 6 months apart, so you hopefully didn't notice they were using the same sets, which is why it's in Rasputin. The kid kind of falls on the ice, and it's the same ice that Dracula plunges to his death in which Dracula is it? I can't remember. It might be Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness, I think.
Yeah. And then it was a Plague of the Zombies, and I think it's the Reptile or something along those lines. They're exactly the same principle.
It's a great but very dangerous drinking game to do a Hammer marathon, then drink every time you recognise the location from the previous film.
Yeah. Definitely. And the thing that people kind of forget is that Hammer, they're now known for Hammer, like House of Horror. But like only a third of their stuff was horror movies, and it's only they've been going for like decades before they go properly onto the horror scene. You know, after kind of Nigel Neal and then into sort of Frankenstein and that, where they tap into it. Most of their stuff were either comedies or like crime noir movies. Like, you know, they did like the Dick Barton movies. One which they're recently promoting, I think they're going to do a 4K restoration of, is Spaceways, which I watched a couple of months ago. Spaceways is very interesting because it's a murder mystery where it's like the main villain's working on like a rocket, and there's essentially a guy's disappeared, and they're gone, we've got a feeling that you've essentially shoved him onto the rocket in like the cargo and launched him into the edge of the atmosphere. It's on like a satellite that's going to come down in 50 years' time, by which time you'll be dead. And I'm like, that's a work of genius to come up with that plot.
I mean, some of their more entertaining films aren't like the gothic horrors that they were most famous for. It's their like the suspense films and like the ones that are a bit off the beaten track. You know, like the smaller black and white kind of stories. You know, are really interesting.
Like. Again, I'm slowly going through them, so I'm at 58 now. A couple of days ago, I watched The Snorkel, which is very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going through them as
very
well.
Hitchcock.
I'm going through them as well, Kieran, but I'm doing easy mode. I'm only doing the horror ones.
Yeah, I just got the complete list, and every one I can get a hold of, I'm going through. The Snorkel is very Hitchcock, you know. And then you get things like, what's the Peter Sellers one that I watched a while ago? That was literally, is it Up the Creek, something like that? where it literally was created as a vehicle for Peter Sellers to kind of get an initial kind of starring role because they realised his comedy thing. It's about sort of kind of a navy ship and a new captain come on board, and literally all of the guys on there are literally just like laundering and just like smuggling goods and everything like that, and they eventually had to like bring him into the job in order not to get done for it, sort of thing. Up the creek. So like Hammer was like kind of later to the horror game, but once they kind of got it in Technicolor and they got the blood, and when she did Curse of Frankenstein and Dracula. I mean, there were other things as well, like Quatermass, X the Unknown, and Abominable Snowman, which is underappreciated. Abominable Snowman with Peter Cushing is great fun. But once you get Curse of Frankenstein and Dracula, really, they go, okay, this is where we can go, and this is what it's known for. And it's only recently, because, I mean, Hammer it came back for a bit, and then it went down, and John Gore took it back over a couple of years ago. And thankfully, they are starting to go, although most of the focus is on the horror stuff, occasionally you do see things like Four-Sided Triangle, and again, they're re-promoting Spaceways, where they're going, we didn't just do horror movies. Let's see if we can mine some of the stuff that people aren't aware of, because that will get people back, because everyone's got a 4K release of Print to Darkness, essentially. Let's re-release some of the other stuff that people don't have, because we can mine that. But they really were known for essentially just churning everything out. And by the time you get to 64, we're like 3 Dracula sequels in. We're on to our 4th Frankenstein, that kind of thing. They've probably done about 2 Jekyll and Hydes by this point. They've done at least 2 Quatermass movies. I don't think they've done the 3rd one, because Quatermass and the Pit was 66, I want to say.
I think Hammer very much got onto kind of the sequel train quicker than Universal did. I mean, I think it took 4 years for Universal to do their first kind of sequel, and I think they only had 3 other sequels that decade. But Hammer literally, this did well. Let's do another one the next year. just keep it going.
Whoever's saying it was like, all these movies they just make sequel after sequel. They're just mining it, new original ideas. You do not know like anything about the history of film at all. Like they've always been doing it, and these guys were like literally they were. As I call them like the old-fashioned Blumhouse. I say that Blumhouse are like the new Hammer, because that's their thing. We'll just make it cheap. We'll throw it at the screen. Eventually, 1 out of 20 like will be critically good, and most of the rest will at least make back their money. So, like, what else do we need? And occasionally you get a hit like Halloween. This one. Essentially, Frankenstein is still alive and kicking, because this is what Frankenstein does. He's been brought back to life, I think it is. He's realised that he can survive death.
Yeah, he's sort of like suspended animations and so.
Because this is how we do it. The Brits are very good at this, and they'll do this with the Master in Doctor Who, where it's like, how did we survive? Oh, we just did. Never mind, move on. He's come out of suspended animation, and he's like, I proved that I can keep the soul in the body. The flesh may die, but the soul, as soon as I can capture it, it remains. And so he kind of goes and sort of... he gets a guy, it's Hans? Bearing in mind I watched this a week ago, and still it's kind of floating around.
That's his assistant.
Hans was murdered. No, that's Hertz.
Well, he's a doctor. He does say at one point, because he's showing his picture to people, he's like, "This is my assistant."
Are we...
Basically, in all the Frankenstein sequels, he'll end up getting someone else who can kind of do the stuff with the hands. Because by this point, I think it's a recurring thing, isn't it, that his hands have been ruined by something.
I don't know why though. Is it just to get somebody else in, or pay another actor?
Who knows?
But anyway, a young man gets murdered, essentially. By a load of people who had formerly witnessed the death of his father at the scaffolding. And eventually a young woman is also killed, so they go and they resurrect her. Because they've managed to... they've stored his soul, they've stored her soul, but when they reanimate her body, Hans' soul ends up inside her.
It's his soul in her body,
through whatever psycho.
But she still gets
science
kind of repressed memories from her own previous self coming back, and kind of they're almost fighting for space in the head, aren't they? Like the two consciousnesses.
And so essentially, then it kind of turns into like a bit of a slasher movie.
It's sort of like a rape, kind of a weird taken rape revenge kind of film, isn't it?
But then, like, Baron Frankenstein ends up being like Sam Loomis as the Ahab, Leslie Vernon style, going, "We gotta stop him," eventually, sort of thing like that. Because she just writes Hans, in a big bloody letters. It's like, oh, we gotta stop him, and so we have this big kind of chase thing there. Weirdly enough, I think the scaffolding actually. In my head, I was watching going, this feels very like Witchfinder General almost. Yeah. There is a very slight folk horror thing. And obviously Witchfinder General is kind of a rebellion against the Hammer stuff. Because yes, it's historical, but it's very anti-sort of fantastical. But there's still an element of that about it, which is quite interesting. And I also thought the Big Hill, Captain Kronos, there's a couple of... one of the early sword fights is on a big hill like that as well. Yeah. It's really interesting from that point of view. Anyway, Jacob, you actually like this movie. I want to hear your thoughts on this, whilst I gather mine.
Well, I think what was most interesting about the film is it does go through kind of the progression of like, how are we landing on getting this person's soul inside of the body. That like, because at the beginning, Frankenstein, he's doing an experiment on himself. He kills himself, and then he puts himself in a freezer. And he's like, great, my experiment worked. The soul remained in the body. And then they have the whole scene where basically it's just to introduce that this guy and this girl love each other, but also to set up future slasher victims.
Yes. Otherwise known as cannon fodder.
Yes, and then Frankenstein goes, great, I can get his body back. I'll explain to a guy how to get bodies, because it's real easy. Nobody cares, and whatever year this is, England, you could just take bodies. It's totally fine. And we will transfer his soul into her body, which will heal her, so she could go on a slasher killing spree. It's totally unclear. Like, has he made Frankenstein at this point? Or not Frankenstein, Frankenstein's monster. What the history of these characters are. You can totally watch this as a standalone film, and it's just awesome.
I mean, the Hammer, Frankenstein, and Dracula films, to be honest, their continuity is loose at best, really.
Yes.
It's like if you're asking a question about what happened previously, don't worry about it. Just don't.
Yeah. It's like, they are technically connected, but at the same time, please treat them as standalone, sort of thing, Like, when you
you could just tell, like, this Peter Cushing is Frankenstein. He knows what he's doing. He's a weird, mad scientist guy. And I really like that the monster is, in this film, she's really, like, she's transformed from a disfigured woman with, like, a limp, I don't know, and then she becomes beautiful as she tricks all of the guys into murder. Like, it's so close to what we consider, like, a female rage movie today.
And another thing the Hammer films do really well, that they do create kind of... upper class assholes really well, don't they? Just as antagonists, you always have
those guys were great.
You always have like an absolutely monstrous fop, basically, to hate, to hate and just pray for like a grisly comeuppance at some point.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is that all these films, especially kind of the Fisher ones and the Val Guest ones as well, they look really nice. They're really kind of lavishly done, especially on such a low budget. And that's the thing. Like, we were saying earlier that the kind of Del Toro Frankenstein film looks great. And it would do because it's Del Toro. But Del Toro can, in the nicest way, if Del Toro can't raise the money to make a film look good, nobody can. And these guys were working for, like, I mean, which Hammer film is it? It's like... I'm not sure if it's even a Hammer, but it's one of the the British anthology movies that kind of has most of the Hammer guys in it. Where John
Wikipedia
Pertwee
says this has $140,000 budget.
Yeah, but like one of the films in like the 70s, like John Pertwee is like essentially playing sort of an actor on a Hammer set. I don't think it's a Hammer film, and he's just kind of getting his cane and going, looking through all this and just poking his stick to the set. So I'm better than this, and he gets killed by a haunted Dracula cape that he's meant to be playing. I think it is. So it's a play on that. But like this is what they were working with, and yet it looks absolutely great. It looks wonderful.
Yeah. But I don't think they even had like in-house like a costume designer at the studio. Basically, they essentially went down to the local costume shop and said, "What have you got for a they'll look alright to seem like this period, vaguely 19th century, kind of any cloaks and dresses that wouldn't look too out of place for that period."
I can feel that we definitely did not do similar things on My Happy Ending. We definitely did not go into town the day before with a vague thing of, we need shoes for these people.
Yeah.
And that was our thing. We just ended up walking around new looking like M&S, taking photos and WhatsApping the wardrobe department going, will these do? Yeah, get them.
Well, I think also compared to Bride of Frankenstein, this has real momentum to it, even though it's not that they're not sitting around going, well, we could create female Frankenstein the whole movie. They say, hey, you kid, go get us some champagne, and then there's obvious like tension between him and the bar or store, I don't know, owner, restaurant, tavern, the owner, with him and the daughter, and it instantly hooked me in a way that the other film never did, because it felt like that movie was just trying to be Frankenstein 1 Part 2, whereas this felt like it was really telling a story between all of the characters that was on
It's got its own thing. It's just going to get in there, it's going to beat you over the head with it for 90 minutes and get out of there very quickly.
I mean, I would say some of the other Frankenstein sequels very much have that kind of thing about, this worked last time, we'll just do that, but more so in a slightly different location. This, I think, out of all of them, I mean, it's not my favourite of the Hammer sequels, but it's definitely the most unique. I think it stands out the most, and it's really, really interesting, I think.
Hilariously enough, I said it looks really gorgeous. I went and dug out a book I picked up, I've read from before a few months ago, A Critical History of British Cinema by Roy Arms, which is interesting, I think, because we're looking at it from a perspective of 60 odd years ago. He wrote this in 1978, so it's quite close to the time it came out. And I mean, 78, 79, I think, was Hammer's last film before they shut down the first time, because it was a remake of The Lady Vanishes. So sort of Hammer was still very much in the public consciousness at the time. He spends pretty much an entire page laying into Terence Fisher. And is literally just going in like, he's an absolute hack, nothing looks good, it's awful, these films are so much better. He praises Michael Powell, I'll say, for Peeping Tom, which goes, it looks awful, the camera work isn't any good, he's got no visual flair and all this kind of thing. I'm like, you are definitely an outsider on the point of view. And maybe it's because sort of horror has just become re-evaluated as time goes on. And especially back in the day, Hammer was seen as just cheap popcorn fodder.
I think common criticism of Terence Fisher is that he's not considered like a stylistically kind of distinct kind of filmmaker, but basically he was just a really versatile, talented director. I'd say he could turn his hand to pretty much anything and always turn out something very least watchable, and often a lot better than that.
I mean, I think there are starting to become things going, why isn't Terence Fisher kind of more heavily studied and analysed as, if not an auteur, then very close to one, for what he is able to do for these kinds of things. Because, I mean, this movie looks great. And let's be honest, Jacob, you said you enjoyed it, but with the title Frankenstein Created Woman, with a plot that you've got like this, it's not going to be the most serious, literary, thought-provoking piece of work in the world, is it? Nah, it's just go in there and have some fun.
It is certainly not the most feminist work available.
No, and in the nicest way,
she is possessed by the spirit of a man to commit these murders, which, I mean, arguably there's some kind of like woke, it's the spirit of men that create, violence inherent in the system. But No, this just feels like exploitative horror.
Yeah. Welcome to Hammer in the 60s and the 70s, and
it's very fun.
Yeah, and they'll just get more like that as the decades went on, and especially into the 70s.
I was going to say, when the code dropped and they were allowed to show nudity in these films,
they are very close to it in this. I couldn't tell if it was or not.
It's
but they're right there.
Madeline Smith, when I was there of her getting interviewed for the Vampire Lovers, isn't it? She was just like, yes, I think she said I was the first one to show nudity in a Hammer film, and that's 1970. But this gets as close as they can, because that's Hammer's entire ethos. It is there to appeal to the masses. It is there to do away with it.
And of course,
more blood.
And of course, that was all over the posters and the marketing for this. Was her, like her bandage bikini, basically.
And I will say also, if you want to go, because I watched it literally kind of this evening before coming to record this, if you want a really interesting gender swap Hammer film, the one you go to is Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde.
It's amazing.
Which I watched again, and it is a ridiculously well done film.
It's so good. It's so good. It's my favourite version of that story I think I've seen. It's great.
Yeah.
We need to make up for this by doing 3 good female Hammer horror or something, because these other 2 don't quite do it justice.
Sister Hyde, the reptile, the Gorgon, maybe we'll find another one somewhere. Kronos, maybe
they're in there.
One of the lesbian vampires movies. Here's the thing: even without that, this is still ridiculously entertaining, and it's been kind of because they've got so much to pack in. There are arguments. I think it was, again, from Caroline Jones' essay from 2000, kind of going, how much agency does is it Caroline, I think, the woman who's eventually killed,
Christina,
I knew it was a C. How much agency do they actually have once they get resurrected? And therefore,
None.
kind of, how feminist is this? Is this a female expressing agency? Is this taking revenge? Is it just her being used, literally possessed by a man?
I joked earlier about the Matrix take on this movie. It's unintentionally that, because it is a guy's soul in whatever inside of her body.
Yeah,
and
so there's definitely stuff on that, and we did our body swapping movies episode a couple of months ago. Definitely, if this had been made today, there would be some explorations of that. Definitely, almost like a possessor sort of thing. So that side of it isn't great. At a certain point, you do have to go, this is Hammer, this is part and parcel of it. Switch the brain off a little bit. It doesn't excuse it, but you can,
I do think the film is sympathetic to Christina as a character. It doesn't, she's a disfigured character, and she has the limp. I don't think it's saying those things are bad, because the protagonist still loves her. They do become kind of a union at the end, so maybe it's kind of like a marriage metaphor. I don't know, but it ultimately looks like a man takes over her body, she becomes beautiful, and starts killing people.
And we all know this is how it works. When a woman goes through a woman becomes the monstrous feminine, they get better because they become kind of literally it's a metaphor for going through puberty, see ginger snaps and all this stuff. So this is proto ginger snaps, as it turns out.
Jennifer's body.
I wonder if this is going to be a link for later on, or very soon. But Frankenstein Created Woman, it's not the best Hammer Frankenstein, but it's certainly nowhere near the worst. Strangely enough, Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. No, is it Frankenstein the Monster from Hell? It's the one in the asylum, isn't it? Near the end, the last one they did.
That's not great, and Horror Frankenstein isn't great, but all the others are at least interesting. They've all got something going for them. I mean, for me, I think Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed has to be top for me of the Hammer Frankensteins, because that is the darkest and most twisted of them all. And Peter Cushing, you think he's monstrous in some of these, but he's a proper irredeemable kind of character in that. I mean, I think they even have him commit sexual assault at one point, so there's no real going back from that.
It's definitely a fun film. There are flaws, and you definitely have to check your brain out, but it's definitely fun. And we do have a female Frankenstein's monster in it.
Yeah.
Which
Yep.
It's weird,
kind of.
and I think it's all these films that kind of are the reason why that Frankenstein will then get spoofed yet again, because you already had it in Abbott and Costello for the Universal, but then when you get Young Frankenstein and Rocky Horror in the decade following, those I think are specifically riffing off the Hammer stuff.
Well, this has encouraged me to watch the other Hammer movies. Like this was fun.
All Hail Hammer.
Yeah, they understand, like, audiences want gore. Like, even if you take away all of the other stuff, the guy, Hans, slashes the pompous British guy in the face, and it feels really good. Like, it's entertaining. It's a fun movie.
Yeah, it literally kind of is a stupid Frankenstein movie that gives the audience what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the part where Frankenstein is like trying to lie to the cops and say, "No, I didn't touch his body," and then he goes, "Well, okay, actually, there's a woman whose body is inhabiting his soul right now." Like,
yeah,
it's a little silly, but
yeah. Welcome to Hammer. Definitely British humor.
It is maybe the laziest way to tell the cops the plot of the movie in order for them to catch the real killer. Because it seems like Frankenstein is covering something up.
Yes. But yeah, speaking of a Frankenstein having to cover things up, normally a monster going around killing lots of people in some neon lighting.
Yeah, well, I talked about at the beginning of this episode, like, these first two movies are about men cutting women out of the process of creating life. Diablo Cody, fortunately, she watched the movie. Sam, what's the 80s comedy you brought up? I forgot the name already.
Weird Science.
Weird Science. This movie was actually made, apparently, in direct response to that film, where she talked about how it's about guys creating the perfect woman. And so she's like, okay, I'm going to make the female version where this, really weird girl makes her ideal man. This goth girl in the 80s.
Yeah.
It feels a lot more from, like, kind of the romantic tradition that Frankenstein sort of comes, not out of, but that's happening around that time.
Yeah. I do want to do a very quick shout out. We covered Jennifer's Body, which is the movie that Diablo Cody is known for, essentially, all the way back, and I'm checking at least Spotify, you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. We released that on October the 12th, 2021.
Wow.
It's terrifying thought. 4.5 years ago, pretty much. Episode 15, if you want to go check that one out.
That long.
Yeah. That was when our episodes were only an hour and 14 minutes long. Wow. Imagine that now.
We went beat by beat for every film.
I was going to say, I had my notebook back then. Maybe I should bring it back.
Perhaps. That was a good bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think this movie is interesting because it takes the story of Frankenstein and it just maps it back onto the teenage girl that, Kieran, you talked about at the top. That's what Mary Shelley was. Yeah. Ultimately, she would be on Tumblr if this was 2020, whatever, and she was writing the story of Frankenstein.
Just writing
She'd probably
fan
be writing
fiction.
Supernatural fan fiction instead. Yeah. But fortunately, she was writing Frankenstein actual fiction instead. And, we talked about Diablo Cody right here. I didn't know Zelda Williams directed this. That is the daughter of Robin Williams. Yeah. So the best undercover Nepo baby, Zelda Williams.
Yeah. Well, it's always nice when a Nepo baby has actual talent.
Yeah. Zelda Williams, Osgood Perkins, 2024 was the start of the horror Nepo baby return, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Osgood Perkins, his dad is so old that I didn't know that was his dad.
Yeah.
Guys, what did you think of Lisa Frankenstein? Because it's a movie my wife really likes, which is why I've seen it a few times. But what were y'all's contemporary reactions?
It's funny because I think I saw this a couple of years ago, and I wasn't that.
It's only a couple of years old, mate.
Yeah, well, okay, but I didn't see it when it first came out. I probably saw it in the following year. So I don't know, whenever. So I saw it, sometime after it came out, and I wasn't that impressed by it. But I went back to it this time and I really enjoyed it. I don't know whether you just have to be in the right mood for it, on the right wavelength for it, but I was actually weirdly moved by it this time round, especially like the last act. It's quite a kind of poignant, kind of bittersweet kind of ending, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And I think it is. I mean, one thing that hasn't changed. I thought this when I first saw it. Catherine Newton is a force of nature, and that she's incredible. I do find it hilarious. We're still on that trope of making a very conventionally pretty actress look like an outcast by giving her a terrible haircut. Basically, it's like just put an horrible 80s perm on Catherine Newton, and we're meant to think, she wouldn't be a popular girl at school.
Yeah, terrible haircut, glasses. Oh my god, nobody's meant to like her anymore. This is how it works. Yeah, I saw this. It was last year. I'm now going back to my letterbox to see exactly when I watched it last year. But it will be only sort of a year or so ago, I think, at most. And I really liked it. And I watched it again. And I think the second time I didn't like it as much, but only just.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still not going to complain about watching it. Like, it's still great fun. And Catherine Newton is, I think... I don't think we regard her as, like, the modern Scream Queen, but she should be. I see no reason why she isn't. Like, obviously we have covered Catherine Newton very recently. A couple of months ago in literally our body swap episode, which we discussed before when we did Freaky, so go check that one out as well. Plug the old episodes. I like this one.
I think the first thing I saw her in was Detective Pikachu. Was that kind of her breakthrough role?
I think so, yeah. Then she was in Freaky. I kind of first became aware of her in Abigail. The kind of thing where it's like, okay, we have a vampire ballerina now, and then she's going to be in the new Ready or Not coming out. She was in Freaky. She's been in some other stuff recently. She is.
For me, she's that kid from Bad Teacher and Supernatural. Like, it's been weird to see her become a star because she really is that for horror movies. Yeah. And
let's ignore the fact she's in Quantum Mania. Ignore that fact.
Yeah. Being Castiel's kid, like, she is kind of iconic in horror adjacent storytelling. I think just immediately.
She's also
apparently she also played Amy March in Little Women.
She's in Lady Bird, and she's also in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Yeah, so she's been on the scene for a while, but I think her fame level has really kind of skyrocketed in like the past couple of years, hasn't it?
Yeah. Unfortunately, she was also in Paranormal Activity 4, so let's move on from that very quickly.
Getting to be the lead for this movie, I mean, that doesn't hurt at all. She is playing the Frankenstein role. Her last name is Swallows, which is really
Lisa
funny.
Swallows.
So, I guess to give a single line, what is this story? In 1989, a traumatized goth teenager accidentally reanimates her Victorian cemetery crush, and while rebuilding his body from the men and adults who wronged her, she turns to grief and alienation in a monster love story. This was described by Focus Features as a coming-of-rage love story. That is what...
that pun doesn't really work, does it?
But they went for it anyway.
Yeah, I would have had another pass at that personally.
Lisa has a traumatic backstory. Her mom was killed in a, different like serial killer movie or something.
Yeah,
she got murdered by a horror film villain, and so Lisa and her dad, they've moved on 6 months later after he remarried.
Very quickly.
Her new stepmom, who is played by Carla Gugino, and. Yeah, she has a new step. Yes, she has a. What is she in, Sam?
She's in all of the Mike Flanagan TV series on Netflix.
There you go. And she also has a new stepsister named Taffy, whose license plate is Laffy, she's Laffy Taffy. She's very fun and funny, and a nice contrast to Lisa in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite refreshing, isn't it? Normally you still have like the wicked stepmother trope in this, basically, but a lot of time you'd have like some antagonism between these two new step siblings as well. But I like that they are really close and supportive of each other, and Taffy's one of the cool kids with the cheerleaders, but she does obviously, like Lisa, one of the few people at school who does, I think she tries to kind of bring her on side and make her feel, kind of bring her out of her shell a bit, to start with.
Sam, you have touched on an aspect for me that kind of rubbed me a different way this time. Normally when I watch this, I think, yeah, Taffy is really supportive. Like, she's a fun character. She's nice. She's not the typical popular kid. But off screen, she has developed this relationship with Lisa's crush, and that kind of gets to the core of my issues with this movie. Is a lot of it is not fully conceived in a way that it is presented on screen. Yeah. There are things happening away from the film that we are watching that just kind of develop overall. And I feel like this movie needs to have just a bit more cohesion between what is happening throughout the course of the film. That it sets up, but what we are actually presented with on screen, I think, could be better. And a lot of that comes down to the writing from Diablo Cody, who is the writer.
Yeah, I mean,
there is... No, go ahead for it.
Well, I was going to say, I struggled with the first time, and it didn't entirely go away on this rewatch, is obviously like the second half of the film, Lisa does become like a full-on monster, essentially, doesn't she? And it's kind of like all kind of the sympathy you used to have for her basically goes when she goes. Yeah. Her zombie boyfriend goes on a killing spree on her behalf, essentially.
Yeah. There is a feeling that it becomes... I mean, I know it's a comedy, but it becomes a series of loosely linked comedy vignettes, almost. Like, small, like, linked... It almost becomes like a sitcom, in a way, I feel. And there's just a total thing that doesn't quite match up. I mean, individual scenes on their own and individual moments are great fun, but there's there's a linkage which isn't quite there.
I mean, I felt a bit more emotionally connected to it overall this time, but there's still those kind of things that don't quite sit well, I suppose.
Overall, I do like the movie. I think it's a good mood. I think it is a good job at, like, approaching the film from a actual female-focused perspective, which is what we're trying to do with Frankenstein. Yeah. Unfortunately, the other films don't do that. Yeah. This one does have an actual female Frankenstein who, yes, does become monstrous throughout the film. I mean, arguably 2 levels of justification. Like, the guy at the beginning who... is weird with her while she's drunk. Here's the thing. I somehow have not seen this movie beginning to end until this watch through. Yeah. So this was the first time for me fully seeing the movie and not just coming in whenever Cole Sprouse is available. Yeah,
I did think that was very harsh treatment of that particular character. I don't think he deserved his fate. It's like, he was probably a bit inappropriate with her while she was drunk, and maybe should have had some kind of punishment for that, but not dismemberment,
I seem to remember us saying the same thing. I don't know, were you with us for the Jennifer's Body episode, Sam?
I was not, no.
I was going to say, I keep forgetting exactly, and the early days were joining on and off. But I seem to remember me and Jacob at least going for a lot of Jennifer's Body. Some of the people she kills, like, did they 100% deserve that fate? Really?
Yeah.
Like, full on, like, demon kill? Like, so...
The thing with that particular kill for the hand, which, so what happens is she does not awaken the Frankenstein, which I thought she did. I haven't seen the movie all the way through until this time, so I didn't know Cole Sprouse woke up on his own. Cole Sprouse, obviously famous for Riverdale and Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. If you aren't familiar with him, that is his sort of mainstream work. But I think particularly Riverdale, where he plays Jughead Jones, like that's horror fantasy sort of show.
Fantastical, we'll take it.
Yeah.
Yes, fantastic.
And I just saw him and thought, wow, this is a very good-looking young man that I've never seen in anything before. So.
I think That's really interesting, Sam, because I've known this guy since he was a teenager. So hearing like, oh, he's a good-looking guy. Yeah, that's basically all he is. He's a good-looking Victorian sort of guy who has been dead. His gravestone says, does it say Stein?
Yeah, I think so.
Don't know. Possibly.
Yeah, and we also know that Catherine Newton's character, Lisa, she is a fan of old horror movies, so we get that from her character. But he may or may not be named Frankenstein, but she brings him to life in her tanning bed. He's living in her closet, and that's pretty much all he is he is a good-looking guy that she finally gets because she has a crush on this guy whose name I don't remember. I think Michael. Played by Henry Eikenberry. Yes, thankfully Wikipedia is there to assist me. He is playing the crush, who is barely in the movie. Yeah. He's in the movie at the beginning. We understand who he is. Lisa explains, oh, hey, I have a crush on this guy. And Taffy says, oh, I have no idea who that guy is, which is part of my issue with her romance sex stuff with Michael happens entirely off screen. But Lisa has a crush on this guy, but she also goes to the cemetery all the time, talks to Cole Sprouse' character Frankenstein, and when he gets zapped by the lightning, that's really where the plot gets going. She's obviously had these episodes because her mom died in a slasher movie that we don't get to watch. Cole Sprouse comes into her house. No, it's basically just so she can destroy all of the stepmom stuff, because when Cole Sprouse does show up, we think, oh, she's just having an episode, but no, he's real, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I will say, I just looked up Cole Sprouse, and it turns out I have known him for many, many years, because somehow he played Ben Geller in Friends. He played Ross and Rachel's kid in Friends, and I'm what?
Him and his brother Zach, they both trade off the role.
That's just terrifying. Always good to see Friends back on the show, I think. Yeah. I mean,
but
a couple of things.
She has. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, if you're still going, I wanted a different point, so keep going with yours.
Well, that's what really frustrates me is Taffy is a very refreshing character, I think, for this kind of movie where she's a popular girl, but she's very nice and she's very empathetic to Lisa. And until this rewatch, I had always thought of her as kind of a good guy, but yeah, ultimately at the end, she's banging Lisa's crush, and we don't see any of that develop on screen. But it's a real bummer when Lisa walks in, and then Cole Sprouse cuts off his junk, and then later they're going to use that so that Lisa can lose her virginity, because this is a coming of rage film. Of course, she needs to go through all of the rituals that teenagers go through, one of which is sex, and yeah, I don't know. I just wish a little bit more of Taffy solo, because Taffy says she doesn't know who Michael is. He's the editor of the literature magazine. I just wish a little bit of that had been more on screen, because she is such a good character.
And even if it was just like, oh, I don't know who he is, and change to, oh yeah, him, don't bother. Something along those lines, maybe. And I think there is a tendency, again, for films to do... I've written on this of my distinction between a reveal and a plot twist, which is that a reveal is giving new information, a plot twist is bringing new understanding to information that has already been given to you.
Yes.
And I think it's trying to go for a plot twist when it's actually a reveal, where there's realistically, it goes back and kind of puts things in your face, but there's no way you could have linked it all up with the evidence that is now given to you.
Yeah. Shall we talk about the magic tanning bed that regenerates people?
No, very, very quickly, I want to do a plug for one of our older episodes. So obviously the introduction, the opening title sequence is very Tim Burton, but obviously at the same time very Lotte Reiniger.
I really just don't like that sequence at all. I think it doesn't fit the movie, and it overtells things that... just tell it in the movie. Don't tell it in the title.
I think it's a great title sequence. I don't think it fits for this movie. is the thing. But still, go back and watch our episode. It's old animated, like silent animators, like queens of animation. I can't remember. We did a bit of Lottie Reiniger, so go do that.
Yeah.
I think we did Burton as well at some point. So anyway,
Yes.
carry on. Tanning bed.
Well,
Neon.
the tanning bed she uses to blast Cole Sprouse and make him sort of human. Because what's ultimately going to happen is, because this is a coming of age movie. By the way, that's the pun if you didn't know.
Oh, really?
She's going to have sex with him, and so they go get the severed penis, they attach it to him, and then they have sex, and that just makes the movie so weird. Honestly, it's not comfortable once you actually are paying attention, not just on your phone. Kieran, you talked about that earlier. That's what I'm like most of the time. I'm playing video games with this movie. And this time actually watching it, I'm like, no, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. I think it's... Individual scenes on their own are designed for kind of laugh and shock factors, and they're fine. I think it's the way they're ironically stitched together. That as soon as you watch them in sequence, you go... Okay, this is not... The individual moments, like, again, I like Lisa as a character. I mean, but then, like, she's essentially our crew. She's like a nerd, that hates the popular kids.
Yeah.
Like, and she's got Georges Méliès on a wardrobe. Like, we're always going to dig that, like, hanging around graveyards.
If you're us and you watch a lot of movies, you're used to 80s nostalgia junk.
Yeah.
In especially horror films with the new It movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that those elements hit hard enough, and they would be better spent on Taffy and the other characters in the film. The stepmom gets killed. Spoilers. She gets killed very early in the film.
Yeah.
And I wish there was a bit more with the tension there, but I do think that setting it in the 80s, having the 80s sort of integrated stuff, like, it does contribute well to what the film is trying to do. I think it is timeless because of that, because it's trying to capture a mood, and it does do those elements well. I just wish they were spent on the characters. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I again, thinking about it, I mean, I know it was directed by Zelda Williams, and it wasn't Diablo Cody that directed it, but I think this has similar issues to Jennifer's Body, in that it's great ideas and there's great elements in there, but there's something about the final execution which doesn't quite connect up, and it fully steals a kill from Jennifer's Body, where she takes the guy out into the woods and murders him. But it does. I think it matters a bit more here why she's in the woods, so I will give that a plus for that. And I will, obviously, I mean, this is stupid, but the only reason why they called the stepmom Janet is so they could make a Rocky Horror joke. That's the only reason.
Sure.
Damn it, Janet.
Damn it, Janet. That's it. Like, they were called Janet, and everyone's just going, wait. Damn it, Janet. Okay, tick that off. You could almost hear Cinema Sins doing his thing and then moving on. That kind of thing, which is like, we shouldn't do it, because the same way, like, if we take points off for that, we got to take points off Shaun of the Dead doing "We're Coming to Get You, Barbara." But at the same time, like, we shouldn't like it, but it's like, we've got a Rocky Horror joke in. Okay, let's move on with our lives.
Yeah. And of course, this is the 21st century. It's going to be a bit more conscious. It's written and directed by a woman, so it does seem more targeted at female audiences just generally, with its female protagonists, with its themes that it's going for. It's mainly post Me Too era. Like, this is just when we're talking about female focused Frankenstein, this is a better film than the other two films. But as a film, I think it has a lot of work to do to be good versus just we're getting there. And most of that has to do with the exact way, like, for me, that the plot is put together. And the exact elements. It kind of feels like Diablo Cody said she wrote it during COVID. It feels like a film that was designed to be filmed during COVID.
As a series of bits that would
a,
eventually be joined together, yeah.
Right, yeah. It's very disconnected for me, and that is something that when Vanity Fair and Roger Ebert both reviewed this film, they touched on that. It's more of a really good series of scenes than it is a cohesive piece of film art.
Yeah, I mean, I think I put on the socials, like, finally getting around to Lisa Frankenstein. I think it was one of our old TFM writers. It might have been Katie, might have been Margaret, somebody along those lines that was like, glad you're enjoying it because I really like the movie. And you can tell this movie has an audience and it works for them. And I mean, I still enjoy...
Ultimately, I do like it.
I do enjoy it, yeah. And it does sound like that we're going to bash the movie a lot. But it's like, you can still enjoy it, but still point out that its flaws and some issues that you have with it. Individual scenes that I really do.
Because I'm sitting there for a full... I did not touch my phone for this movie.
Yeah.
I did for the other two. For this one, I just watched it all the way through because I haven't. I hadn't seen
and you'd
the
seen
scene
half of it already, so...
Yeah. I didn't see the scene where she was at a high school party. I think it is a good series of scenes. I think it is staged really well. I think it is the costumes, the characterization. Obviously this teenage girl is in love and obsessed with a dead guy. That's cool.
She is Mary Shelley, let's be fair. She's Mary Shelley brought into the 1989.
Yeah, it is fun. It is cool. It is a movie that I think is emotionally effective. I think if I were a girl, I would feel a bit differently about it. If I cared about Frankenstein, if I cared about Gothic literature. But, for me, this is just an movie, ultimately. Yeah. And I would rather watch the Hammer movies because they're so stupid.
And at the end of the day, this is a parody movie. This is a send-off. Yeah. It is a comedy.
Well, no, the fact that her mom gets killed by a serial killer slasher horror movie, that is just absurd on its face. From the beginning, it's a ridiculous movie. And I like the goofy dad. I like his relationship with Taffy. Yeah. There's so many things I like, and I'm sorry I haven't touched on those.
That's that guy's kind of go-to role now. He's there's the same role in sort of goofy dad in Stranger Things. When they came back in for this, it's like play another dad in the 80s, please.
Their relationship is really touching, and when they go to the graves at the end for the mom and Lisa, that's nice. Yeah. Ultimately, it is a likable film, but I think it could be so much better than it is. Yeah. And I'm harsh on it for that.
Yeah. Again, in the same way, I hate to keep making the comparison, but the same to Jennifer's Body, where I enjoy the film, but I mean, Jennifer's Body, everyone hails as an absolute feminist masterpiece, and I'm like, it's an enjoyable film. It's not at that level.
Jennifer's Body is better.
I mean, Diablo Cody has finally got round to writing the sequel to Jennifer's Body, which they're going to be making next year, I believe.
Is it Jennifer's Bodies?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Megan Fox has had too much plastic surgery to look like the same
We're going to have
unfortunately.
Whoever she's now married to, whoever it is, it's Machine Gun Kelly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell you what.
No, they're divorced now. Or they're divorcing.
I will watch Jennifer's Body too if in it she rips apart Machine Gun Kelly.
Yes, please.
I'll take that.
But I was going to say, do you think in a few years we might get a sequel to this? It's sort of set up for a sequel by the end, with Lisa.
Bride of Lisa Frankenstein.
Yeah, Lisa kind of in bandages, and I bet when she takes off her bandages, she's got a fright wig hairdo.
She'll have it normal, and then she gets hit by lightning, and that will put the shocks in her hair, probably something along those lines. Yeah, I mean, I prefer this to Jennifer's Body, but both are still good.
I think I do as well.
This is. I think also just I vibe with the aesthetics on this. It looks really good, and it looks. It is a fun movie. Individual scenes are great fun. It's just the stitching together which tonally feels off for me watching this again. I'm just there's something a little bit off. And we just must say as well, for a directorial debut as well, it's very good.
It is.
Oh yeah, I mean she's done shorts, Zelda Williams, but in terms of until this film, that's all she had done, and acting roles.
In terms of, and I think we always bring this up whenever it's a kind of featured directorial debut, we give a little bit of a pass as well on some things because, you know, it's your first time doing anything and putting together anything of this length. It's the first time handling a couple $1 million, $13 million budget, which is, you know, it's not a lot in terms of film, but if you've never had $13 million before, you know.
I don't care whose kid you are. Like, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And Kieran, you did a whole PhD on how to manage the budget for that, basically.
Yeah.
So I think she did a passable job and deserves another film. Yeah. And she'll get it because she's Nebo.
I was going to say, All the Devil's Men, which we did, that was $6.6 million. So that was half the budget, essentially, of this thing, you know. Yeah. So you get this amount of money, you're like, first-time director as well. I mean, Matthew Hope had done a couple of movies and they're action movies, but you get the first time you get $13 million. You know, you get people that have been in Marvel movies and that kind of thing. You know, and they're not massive names, but they're decent enough. And $30 million, there's going to be pressure on it. You know, to make sure it works. And so for this, it is a very good feature debut, and that should be applauded.
And it almost made back its budget. So
it made 9.9, didn't it? Something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been needed to make about 30 million in order to offset the production costs and all that kind of thing. But
and Liza Soberano, I cannot emphasize how much of a great actress and person she is. I hope she gets more like really mainstream roles. Get her in some Oscar conversations. I think as Laffy Taffy, you know, she's a silly character. She is the cheerleader. I think she's really good, and I think she shows a lot of depth, and I'm rooting for her career.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else she's been in.
Not a lot, I don't think.
Not nothing. Like, this is her mainstream film role, and
quite a few Filipino bits of television. This is realistically her feature debut.
But she's done a lot of really good advocacy work, and that's nice.
She will be in How to Train Your Dragon 2, though, and Shrek 5, apparently. So.
Yeah, when Shrek 5 actually gets going.
Anyway.
Speaking of Zendaya, man, guys, I'm excited for Dune 3. That's going to be fun. But until then, guys, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Second Cut Pod Substack. A few new things for me this week. I've the past 6 weeks I've been watching all of the Best Picture Oscar winners I'd never seen before. So all my mini reviews of that summarised in a handy little post that published over the weekend. And there's obviously also my The Bride review up there as well. So. Yep, it's definitely an interesting film. Yeah. And if you want to look at the what I published last year, I did a 90th anniversary review of Bride of Frankenstein.
Would have been, because it'd be 35, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So that's still up there as well.
Hopefully you don't find me anywhere. If you do, I'm K Judgmental in various places. Haven't got anything new up recently, but hopefully I will do. It's just work has buried me at the moment, but hopefully I'll get something new up soon.
Yes. And, well, Kieran, you did our Oscars coverage, correct?
No, I didn't get around to that in the end. To be honest, if you've seen the BAFTAs wins, they're not that much different. There's like one or two that are different, and obviously a couple of the awards. But most of the big ones, like the same main picture one, the same supporting actor one, the same main. Okay, the main actor was different, but like the same main actress was the same. Like, you know, Frankenstein won the
nobody said the N-word.
Frankenstein was roughly the same.
Awards.
Most of the stuff it's a good 75-80%, pretty much the same kind of thing you'd expect. So.
Well, and I'm Jacob, at Jacob Film Guy. I loved one battle after another, and I reviewed that at the Film Magazine. Go read that, or not the Film Magazine. Go read our Film Magazine stuff. That's still up until 2030, but I reviewed that for Second Cut. So go read that at our Substack. You can email us at secondcutpod at gmail.com or find us at secondcutpod. That is it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Adios.
Bye.